I like being able to take something that's maybe not great at that point and turning it into something amazing, because I know that revision is going to be the thing that makes something good. Don't be afraid to communicate, I think, with the people close to you. And you do get agency owners who do listen. As soon as like menstrual health days were suggested, it was like, yeah, cool, let's do it. And having people like that who are much more open to change is going to be a big part of making SEO more accessible, I feel.
Welcome to another episode of MozPod. My name is Chima Mmeje, your host, and our guest today is Chloe Smith. Chloe is the Strategic SEO Lead at Blue Array, one of the largest pure-play SEO agencies in the UK. And she's also the co-founder of the LGBT SEOs community. She has worked in SEO for 5 years, and in that time, Chloe has spoken at Brighton SEO and helped with organizing London SEO meetup events. As a creative writing graduate and performance poet, Chloe brings this creativity into her role as an SEO in several ways, including leading Blue Array's content offering. She also has the most colorful hair in the industry. Today, we're talking about what poetry can teach us about SEO. Chloe, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes. How did you get into spoken word poetry? Was it something you've always wanted to do?
So I've been writing for as long as I can remember. I used to like make my sister little storybooks when I was a kid, and would like literally make up all of these stories for her. And that kind of carried on while I was at school. And then when I got into GCSE English, we had, and it gives me like flashbacks to talk about it, like an anthology called Moon on the Tides, that we had to analyse, memorise these poems for our exams. And everyone hated it except for me. And I was like, oh, actually, I really like reading these. Maybe I'll give it a try writing it and stuff. So my GCSE English teacher was kind of helping me grow in terms of doing that. And then I had my first like spoken word performance when I was 17 at a local festival in Essex, and I had the best time. Like I'd been performing before. I did like music BTEC at school, so lots of performing and stuff. So I was used to being on a stage, but it was very different speaking my own words as opposed to like singing covers or something that I'd do in school. That then kind of fed into when I applied for university doing creative writing. I took all of the poetry modules that I could, and basically just kept doing it as much as I could. Loved it. It stalled a little bit when I first started working just to try and find balance, but I'm constantly writing, even if I'm not performing it. And I just love it.
That's incredible. So you've basically been a poet since you were a little kid.
I think so, yeah.
I love that. So how has your approach to poetry evolved over time, and how do you usually find inspiration for your pieces? Do you have to like go to a silent retreat, do the whole monk thing? What inspires you to write, Chloe?
It sounds really corny, but everything inspires me.
Aww.
So my New Year's resolution for this year was to try and write at least one poem every week, because I've spent the past few years getting back into writing stories like prose as opposed to poems. And I kind of missed it, like getting stuck in and actually creating these contained stories as opposed to something big and sprawling. So I've started, as soon as I think of something, I've got like a Google Docs thing on my phone, and I will literally just sit there and type out ideas. And then maybe like on a Sunday, I'll sit down and go through everything and start to kind of turn it into something. In terms of how like that's changed over time, I think when I was younger, when I first started writing poems, I was very literal and trying to fit my words into a format that didn't really work because that's what was done. So trying to make all of my poems rhyme, for example, which I'm not very good at. I can't think up rhymes off the top of my head. I would have to sit there and use a rhyming dictionary. And as soon as I kind of learnt that, yeah, you could write like in a haiku or a sonnet, you can also just write whatever the hell you want and it's still going to be fun and your work. So I think because of that, my approach has changed from I'm going to stick to this one form and only ever that to I'm going to do whatever the hell I want, which is very freeing as a writer.
I think all kids all over the world started out writing poetry, trying to rhyme.
Yep.
The color of my eyes, and then find something that rhymes with eyes or color, and then put that in the next line, and then find something that rhymes with the next line, with the next line after that. And you just feel like the Shakespeare of your group.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I was maybe 16, a friend of one of my mum's went to school with a poet who is like all of his stuff is incredibly focused on rhyming and like alliteration and like stuff that sounds good as opposed to looking good on the page, which I think is great if that's your thing. And he kind of gave me feedback on my work once, and I was expecting it to be, oh, you could be rhyming a bit more, you could be a bit more creative with your use of words and stuff. And he was like, you need to just stop trying to fit into a format before you write something, and just write it first and then see what fits into it after. Which made a lot of sense.
That's interesting. Okay. Tell us about your SEO background. How did you get into the industry? Was it by accident like everyone else?
Yeah, it was. I went to university in Winchester and did creative writing there. And I'd always said while I was doing that degree that, being a full-time author would be the absolute dream. But my grown-up idea is I'm going to go and work in marketing or PR so then I can write on the side and write and not feel like work. Alongside that, I was also trying to find a job in Reading where I live because my partner was going to university there, so I needed something that was there. And I think I actually applied to the SEO exec job at Blu-ray 3 times by accident. Just kind of forgot that I'd submitted it a few times, and I was rung by their head of SEO at the time, being like, yeah, I've seen your CV a few times now. Do you want to come in? And I was absolutely mortified. Had not even heard of SEO. I had to do a presentation on featured snippets in my
you did
interview.
Not even know what was SEO.
So I knew it as a concept, but I didn't twig onto the fact that I knew it until quite a few years later, because my granddad had told me about how when he was a tutor, he used to have to add keywords to his website so he would appear for tutors in Basildon, which is where he's from. So he obviously knew what SEO was. And then I started doing this job and tried to explain to him what I was doing, obviously like everyone else, expecting to have a bit of a mission. He was like, oh yeah, I know what that is. I was like, oh, okay. But I had to do this presentation on featured snippets in my interview, mispronounced Ahrefs and called it RFs because of course, and still managed to get it, which is fun. And I've been there for coming up 5 years now. And to be honest, I love it. It's one of the things that I didn't think I would enjoy as much as I do. I think because it's very, a lot of it is very heavy on analysis and stuff. I didn't necessarily think of myself as someone who thinks quite analytically. Turns out I do a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Can you share a pivotal moment or project early in your SEO career that made you feel like, yes, this is absolutely what I want to be doing with my life?
Yeah. So 3 or 4 months into my time at Blu-ray, I was pulled in onto a project and wasn't expecting something this big very early on. Was a supporting exec at the time. And it was basically a used car marketplace that was planning to launch. So there wasn't a website at that point. They didn't have any kind of momentum behind them. And we were involved building the website from the ground up, making sure that SEO was kind of built into it at every step of the way. And I spent a lot of time doing desk research, what a lot of people consider grunt work. But I remember doing a competitor backlink analysis that took me 3 weeks to complete. It was enormous. And it was the first time that I finished a piece of work, looked at it and went, oh my God, this is actually shit hot. This is great. Didn't expect to like it. Like most people sitting there and looking at a sheet that's got 200,000 rows of data on, it's overwhelming. But that was the point that I was like, actually, I can do this. And I'm not that bad at it either.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Does poetry influence your work in SEO, especially in terms of creativity and content development?
Yeah, I mean, I think creativity is the main thing there. I am not necessarily worried about work turning out poorly the first time round, for example, because I know that revision is going to be the thing that makes something good. I did a lot of time like copy editing, for example, at the start, for kind of content for clients. And that was one of the jobs that I actually really, really like doing. I like being able to take something that's maybe not great at that point and turning it into something amazing. Particularly for me at the moment, working on kind of like reformalizing our agency's content offering and stuff, spending a lot of time building in how we do content ideation and not necessarily just using your typical keyword research tools, but then also building in like customer data and questions from them, FAQs that sales departments get and stuff. And then like, actually building that into our onboarding process for content clients. Because the more information we get at the start, the more creative we can be with the content that we make. Not necessarily poetry related, but writing related more than anything. And I think for me,
creativity.
Yeah, exactly. Even looking at kind of reporting and stuff, like what's the best way of framing this content for someone who's maybe not too hot on Google Analytics or Search Console information. I've done before kind of iterations of monthly reports for clients, that one for the people that we have, our point of contacts that kind of in the trenches every single day, know exactly what we're talking about, but then a high level one for senior leadership. And it's really interesting seeing how that information is kind of like differently presented, just so that like there are different levels of access, right, for this kind of information. So even building it into reporting in a way.
You're disabled and queer.
Yes.
What difficulties have you faced around both identities?
I think I'll start with being disabled because from my perspective, that's possibly one of the bigger ones, especially in our industry at the moment. I've got chronic pelvic pain as a result of endometriosis. And that's something that affects 1 in 10 people assigned female at birth. It's awful. It causes so much pain, but it's so underfunded in terms of research. Not many people know about it. So I spend a lot of my time talking about my reproductive system because other people maybe don't know that this is a thing that they could have. And for me, access to conferences and even to workplaces was a biggie. When I first started at Blue Array, we were 100% in the office all the time, which as a junior member of staff, I found that really useful because I could ask people questions whenever I needed to. But I was at that point really struggling to manage my pain. I wasn't using a walking stick to get around, so I was doing myself more harm than good. And I think my health suffered as a result of it. Obviously, remote working now, like I go into the office maybe once a month to say hi and show my face and like see the people I want to see. But like being at home has helped so much. And I still think there's a lot that conferences and employers could be doing to make stuff more accessible. In terms of being queer, it's less work-based for me, though I know that's not the case for everyone. Like I pass as female, I pass as heterosexual because my partner is a man. So I don't necessarily get the same issues that other people do, though then that still comes with its own thing because I'm a bisexual AFAB person with a male partner. It's immediately assumed, okay, they're straight, we're both queer, and we consider like our relationship a queer relationship, but it's not really seen like that from the outside. Less of a work thing, but that's the weird one. Almost like having to come out whenever someone like questions your relationship.
I find that interesting because I'm also a bisexual woman, but I prefer to date women than to date men. But I also find it interesting in the sense that even within the queer community, we tend to judge bisexuals who date people of the opposite sex versus bisexuals who dates other people of the same sex. It's like, oh, if you date people of the same sex, then yes, you're more queer than the person who is dating someone of the opposite sex. It's just double standards. I don't think we need that. So thank you for sharing that. How have these experiences shaped your approach to advocacy and inclusion?
So the biggie for me was more talking about endometriosis and menstrual health in the workplace. So I did a talk at Brighton SEO in 2022 on menstrual health and how it's perceived in SEO. I sent out like a survey. I had like 250 responses.
I saw that.
It was so great. And I went and did a talk on stage and just spoke about periods basically for 20 minutes. It was great at the time of my life. But that's the big one for me. Having something that actually is as common as diabetes in women that isn't as widely known about as diabetes, it's ridiculous. Like if you're having bad periods, then it might not just be that's what they're like. That could be an issue. So I helped Blue Array put together a menstrual health policy, a little bit like mental health days, just being able to take a day, no questions asked if like your period is absolutely terrible. And I think it's done a lot, like especially for my well-being at work, just being able to be like, hey, I need a day of just nothing.
That sounds like a dream, honestly. Because I know so many people that menstruate and it's a very painful experience for them every single month. It would be nice to just be able to take one day from work and say, I want this to be part of my sick day or something. Like, I want this to be a paid day off where I can just like rest and take care of myself. It's like we don't even acknowledge menstruation in the workplace. And it's nice to be able to have that. Well done for setting that up, Chloe. I'm hoping that more people who are watching this will take initiative and start, fingers crossed, we'll start doing something similar.
Yeah.
All right. Hot take. What is one thing that frustrates you the most about SEO or the industry? Let it rip.
Oh, how brutal do I want to be?
Be fucking brutal.
Okay. I really need people to stop regurgitating the same crap on Twitter and LinkedIn.
Oh, I do that.
I know, but you actually post unique stuff.
No, but I post this. Like, let's say I post something about A on Twitter. I take that and I post it on LinkedIn because anybody creating the same. Oh my God, it's coming for me.
I mean, different people posting the same stuff. Not you. You're fine. I think a lot of stuff around the big one at the moment is obviously like backlinks and niche bloggers and things like that. I think we just all need to get off each other's backs a little bit. The drama's fun. It's fun to watch. I love the tea. But also, we are all adults.
Look, it is. Do you know what? I completely disagree because I like it when grown-ass adults who have a job, who have a mortgage, come on Elon Musk's internet and start fighting like children about the most mundane shit that should not even matter.
Bro, you are a parent. Why are you doing this? Like I think there's a lot of value in a lot of the stuff that people post online. I find a lot of useful stuff on LinkedIn, but it's also a cesspit, and I just can't hack it sometimes just because there's so much
you need to be more specific. You're playing it safe now. When you say the cesspit, what do you mean, Chloe?
LinkedIn in particular, a lot of homophobia, racism, transphobia.
Now you're coming to what you're trying to say.
Yeah. We've seen quite a few things. You've surfaced a lot of stuff like of people being racist, talking around the FCDC and stuff like that. Like, there are still really trashy people in our industry. Like, a couple of weeks ago, I decided to come away from SEO Twitter for a little while because I saw a lot of transphobia. And I was like, actually, I need to take a minute out here because this is too much. And I think people, take themselves too seriously on the internet.
Especially on Twitter, honestly, too seriously. It's not that deep.
No, I love making a fool of myself on the internet. Take things less seriously. It's a lot of fun. And also, like, don't be so loud about really shitty issues when you literally have where you work on your LinkedIn, because that could get in a lot of trouble, especially when there's someone like me involved.
I think I've calmed down. I used to be the person that I had a take no prisoners approach online. That was my persona. I don't fucking care where it is.
Yeah.
LinkedIn, Twitter. If you say something that I find that antagonistic, like being homophobic, racist, that kind of shit, or you're just showing out unnecessarily, I will come for you.
Yeah.
But since joining Moz, I now have a corporate voice.
Yes.
And I'm now very, bitch, I will come for you, but then I will end with, I hear you, I understand you, but I disagree with you.
Yeah.
And then I give myself a pat on the back like, oh, Chima, well done on being an adult.
You being nice.
Look at you being nice, girl. You have grown. You have really, really grown. But I hear you, and I completely agree with you on the whole adults behaving like children drama. I agree with you that LinkedIn, Twitter, it can be a cesspool of negativity. Like somebody sharing their opinion and that person who wants to be right, putting them down. I think the whole thing is that we take ourselves too seriously and we just need to take a chill pill in the industry.
Yeah.
Nothing is that deep.
Agreed.
That is my takeaway. Nothing is that deep.
Hell yeah.
That was a good hot take. That's a good hot take.
I've got lots of them.
You had me going. I was like, oh, she's
coming for you.
That was my face. All right, Chloe. Next question. Let's flip the coin now. What are your top highlights as a queer disabled person?
I love the increased representation that there is now. I didn't realise I was queer until I was maybe 18. So I didn't necessarily have the issue of not seeing myself in media. After that realisation, and also after I started experiencing the pain that I have for quite a long time, I was like, oh, like everyone can move properly on TV. No one really has the struggles that I have. So that actually seeing disabled characters both on TV, films, and in books is a big one for me. Also, more recently, LGBT SEOs has been announced as a Brighton SEO community partner, despite the community not being 100% off the ground yet. So props to them for being patient with us, for taking our time. But that's a big one for me.
Yay!
Yeah, huge. And I think the other one, probably the fact that I've got to the point where I have in SEO, despite being chronically ill, I'm quite lucky. I've been on some medication for the past year that has, for the most part, alleviated my pain. But up until that point, and even now, it takes so much energy just to manage my body as it exists, that then also, like, I've moved up from an SEO executive to a team lead in the past 5 years, despite the fact that I've been in pain most of that time. I've been exhausted most of that time. Like that kind of stuff. I'm really proud of myself for doing that. And I'm not very good at tooting my own horn with that kind of stuff, so I'm going to start doing it a bit more.
Yes, you should.
Yeah, I'm very proud of myself.
That's
for that.
incredible. Let's see if we can reach across these mics and do a high.
Most embarrassing high five.
High five! Like old people who can move around, but we got it done. So well done, Chloe. Well done.
Poor mobility high five. Let's go.
Two disabled chicks trying to high five each other.
You know it.
We did well.
Yeah.
That was incredible. That was so good, because I think moving past the pain, there are so many days when I wake up. Like yesterday, I woke up and my leg literally couldn't move. I couldn't put my leg on the ground. I was in pain. But I'm still able to like jump my computer, get work done, come out of the funk. And you just do it. Because if you don't do it, the work is still going to be sitting there the next day waiting for you. So well done to you. I don't want to say rising above the pain, but in spite of the pain, getting stuff done, being a visible voice for queer people, being a visible voice for disabled people, because I see you and I take inspiration from you to feel confident using my walking stick. So thank you for setting that blueprint for me.
Oh, honestly, I need to show you some cool stick websites.
Yeah,
honestly, where I get the bubble one from.
I got one for my birthday, so I need to customize my new walking stick coming in for my birthday.
My first one that I ever got is still covered in stickers. Like literally, there is no stick left. It's just stickers. It's great.
Hey friend, if you stuck around this far, I'll take it you're enjoying the podcast. Please hit the like button to show your support, subscribe to stay in the loop, and click the bell button to get notified when we release a new episode. Thank you. I love your LGBT freak stickers. I even have one on my personal computer. Tell us about your advocacy efforts. Like, I want to start with those stickers.
Mhm.
How did you even come up with the idea for them? And what other advocacy efforts do you have going on?
So the stickers came about when I did that menstrual health talk. I obviously put out a form to get people's like insight, and I got some, I'm gonna call them unsavory responses in that. And a big one was it said, "A big fuck you to all of the LGBT freaks in the SEO space."
Damn.
And I was like, "Whoa, that's a bit much." And I think it's because all of my questions were gender neutral. I was trying to just get like a general vibe from everyone. And I put a screenshot on Twitter, and I think it was Natalie Mott replied to it saying I'd wear that on a shirt. So I sent it to my partner, who does like a little bit of design in his spare time. And before I knew it, he'd made LGBT SEO Freak, like a design for stickers.
Oh my God. Now I love it even more, hearing this background story of how it came about.
Yeah. So he made that, and we kind of put stuff on Redbubble just so it was easy for people to get. And then at the Brighton SEO, like closest to that, Andy Jarvis ended up taking one of the bought one of the t-shirts and gave it away as part of his keynote, which was a lot of fun and got a lot more visibility for it. And what that did was kind of kickstart like LGBT meetups at Brighton SEO and stuff like that, like taking the picture on the stage every time, and all of that kind of stuff. In terms of the things that we're doing now, my friend Katie Mishner and I are working on getting LGBT SEOs off the ground. As part of that, the freak is being taken away from the logo, but it will still be part of the history.
Why?
I think just because it potentially feeds into some of the stuff that like these awful people in the industry
I think we
have
can
said.
take ownership of those kind of terms and make it feel empowering.
It's still going to be part of it, and we'll still have stickers for it.
But you're taking it out of the name.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we're doing it as a phased approach just to make sure that we get it right the first time. We'd rather kind of open the community to like a smaller number of people, and then we'll grow it once we know that we've got stuff like in the right place. Like making sure like our mission statements and things make it very clear that if you're a dick, then you're very much not welcome. So hopefully 2024 will be the year of LGBT SEOs, working with hopefully a bunch of other communities to make sure that we've got representation of queer folks in all of these other communities as well. Because I think one thing that I see as like someone who's queer and disabled is the two are fine separate, but as soon as you've got them combined, then there's a real lack of representation of those voices. And it's probably something that you see with people of colour being queer as well. I know that like there are real big gaps in kind of acceptance, particularly for queer Black women. So that's something that I'm really mindful of, and making sure that we get these things done the first time around instead of having to kind of go back and like retcon it.
Smart approach. So this brings me to my next question. How can we make SEO more accessible and inclusive?
I think there are a lot of people who do that already. You being one of them, Arij, Neurodivergence in SEO, and everyone doing that kind of stuff. It's getting the masses to actually listen to them, I think, is the thing that's missing. And you do get agency owners who do listen. So like I feel very fortunate to work where I do, where as soon as like menstrual health days were suggested, it was like, yeah, cool, let's do it. And having people like that who are much more open to change is going to be a big part of making SEO more accessible, I feel. Particularly with them when you think about Google obviously putting more focus on like web accessibility as well. That's a big one I think we don't talk about very much. Like, yeah, we could talk about how anchor text is a ranking factor, but we could also say anchor text tells blind users what that page is. Like it's all kind of
connected.
We think in binaries as opposed to this is good for everyone.
Yeah.
Not just this is good for Google or this is good for people, this is good for everyone. And I think that's the big thing, being open to change and actually having some compassion in your strategies is like, I think what a lot of people don't do, or like they don't prioritize it. If we think about accessibility, for example, if you just want your content to be available to everyone, then you shouldn't be batting an eye. Like that's the kind of stuff that should just be second nature to us. And it's not at the moment. So hopefully it will be.
Well, I think it's because they don't have empathy. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the time, empathy comes from having had personal experiences. Yeah. That's always the big thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How do you find work-life balance, Chloe? You sound like you have a very busy life, moving on all fronts. What do you even have work-life balance to even start with?
I have a work-life balance in terms of I have my work life and I have my personal life. It's just that both are very busy. I think that's the thing. I am, for the most part, pretty stringent in terms of when my day finishes at work, my day is done. So I work 8:30, 4:30. I'll get to 4:30, have a look at how much more I've got to do, and we'll work for maybe another 30 minutes maximum, and then be like, right, that is it. Closing that, leaving my office, going downstairs, doing something else. And for me, that was the big thing with the switch to working from home, was even though my commute was only a bus journey, it still involved having to get up, sort myself out in the morning, eat, get to work, then log on and then work. And that was a lot of, like, I don't want to say emotional labor because it's not that, but it was just a lot of maintenance for me. And then like I'd get home and I wouldn't have the energy to cook dinner. Whereas now I love cooking. It's one of my favorite things to do, and baking, lots of bread. So that has done a lot for my health. Although I then also still make my personal life very busy, going to concerts and like friends' bands and stuff. But as someone who wasn't able to do that for a very long time, I prioritize those things because that's important to me.
Amazing. You have a full life, basically.
Yes.
And that's excellent. Can you discuss a specific project or campaign where your unique perspective as a spoken word poet and SEO expert impacted the outcome? Best of both worlds, basically.
So I'm going to take from the poet side of things, the confidence it's given me, because doing public speaking from a pretty young age has given me, like, I don't get stage fright anymore. Like, I'll get a little nervous, but like even presenting to clients, like I'm like, this is fine because this is very, like, a lot fewer people than who would usually like see me speak at conferences or be at gigs. So I did, during the pandemic, a site audit for a client's sister site who they hadn't really signed on at that point, but it was kind of the moment that you could potentially get them engaged for more. And it was the first time that I'd ever done something like that by myself. So completely just went at it. I did the technical audit, which was very new for me, analytics, keywords and content, all of that kind of stuff, and then presented it back to their board. And I feel like the insights were good. I think I'm a good SEO, can hope. But presenting to a board felt very daunting. But then I was like, oh, hang on, I'm all right at this, actually. This is fine. They didn't sign on, but I'm going to say that's just because they're mean, not because I was terrible. I think that kind of comes into things a lot. Like, it doesn't matter what the information is as long as it's presented in the right way. And that's probably where poetry has helped me the most, because I can literally, like, even if someone's off sick and a deck needs to be presented to a client that I've not seen before, I'll sit down, read through it in 15 minutes, and then like, great, let's go. And we'll just present it. Which, yeah, some of the information, like, I may stammer, but I've got the confidence to be like, all right, I know that I can present this. So that's fine.
If you've been keeping up with SEO updates, then you probably know that keyword research must align with search intent or it just doesn't work. Now, here's where it gets tricky. Identifying funnel-based intent might look simple, but quickly becomes complicated as search intent evolves. How do you know when search intent changes? What if a commercial keyword is actually an informational keyword? Rather than playing guesswork, our new Keyword Explorer powered by AI simplifies your research with high-value keywords optimized for search intents. Whether your goal is to generate revenue with commercial keywords or educate your audience with informational content, Moz AI helps you maximize every dollar out of your SEO budget to achieve your marketing goals. What advice would you give to others who might see themselves in your story and are aspiring to similar paths?
Don't be afraid to communicate. I think with the people close to you. I went into SEO not really mentioning that I was disabled. Partly because I went and started applying for jobs and had the advice of don't tell people you're sick because they may not hire you. Which, yeah, you're not legally obligated to disclose whether you have a disability, but they're also legally not allowed, they can't just not hire you on those grounds. It's a breach of the Equality Act in the UK. So I think just being able to have that conversation, I waited 6 months working at Blu-ray before I told my line manager at the time that I was chronically ill. And I remember just sitting there explaining it to him and him just being like, Jesus Christ, have you been dealing with that the last 6 months without saying anything? And I was just like, yeah, oops, sorry. But after that kind of just helped build that relationship a bit more. And it meant that I was actually feeling comfortable saying, hey, I need to go and I used to go and sit on the bean bags next to the radiator. So I had heat on my back and then I had an electric heat pad on my front. Our founder's dog really liked that when she came in. She used to be my best friend because I was just warm all the time. But having that just made me feel so much more comfortable at work and in my own skin. That just helped so much.
I'm glad we can have this kind of conversation, that we've gotten to a point in the world where we can have open conversations about disability.
100%.
And yeah, I agree with you. I definitely think you should share that with your employers. But I personally feel like you don't have to disclose that. Legally, you don't have to. I would personally say wait until you started the job. And then when you feel safe, as soon as possible, share it with your employers. That way, they can better support you with your needs. And it just becomes a much more enjoyable working space for you.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that, Chloe.
No problem.
Are there any resources or communities you would recommend for queer disabled people who work in SEO?
Not ones that cover that umbrella. I think the disabled one is one that I'd love to start a community for disabled SEOs, but it's such a broad spectrum because then you could come into neurodivergence in SEO because being neurodivergent is considered a disability for some. So I think find your people. Follow me on Twitter if you want to start there. And I mean, join other communities because you're going to find people who have the same issues as you wherever you go. Like Women in Tech SEO, I know quite a few chronically ill folks here in that. FCDC, I'm sure you've probably got a few as well. So it's just more about finding your people. And then obviously for the queer folks, LGBT SEOs when we actually get up, because that's going to be your place to go.
Awesome. All right. What are you most grateful for right now, both in your personal and professional life?
Is it cheesy if I say for both stories?
What do you mean stories?
So books, reading and writing have obviously been a big part of my life, my whole life. But I find even the smallest stories really valuable. So sitting there and watching someone's TikTok on why they cook the food they cook, amazing. I want to hear your whole background. I want to understand that.
Really? You enjoy that stuff?
Honestly, I really like learning about other people and their backgrounds, because it gives you so much insight into them and why they do what they do, which I guess covers the work stuff as well. Like I want to understand and get underneath the stuff that my clients are doing and why, because that's how I'm going to make sure that the stuff we do aligns with their brand and their messaging. And that kind of comes into the content stuff, because we wouldn't be coming up with certain topics unless they want to cover them. And then personal life, just because I'm reading a lot and I'm very grateful for books, always.
Nice. So stories, watching people's stories and reading books.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that, Chloe. That has been a very, very excellent episode.
I've had a great time.
Awesome. That's it for today on MozPod. Don't forget to use the hashtag MozPod to share anything you found interesting on today's episode. This episode was engineered by Saul Fox, produced by Chima Mmeje and Joe Cameron, and our YouTube footage was filmed and edited by Sarah Galpin. Remember, curiosity did not kill the cat. It just improved its search rankings. Bye-bye.